Do you believe you are stuck in patterns? But the truth is, you're out of touch with the field. It's not a lack of willpower. It's not karma. It's not bad luck. It's just noise. Noise between who you are and what you vibrate. Between your field and the field. The universe does not repeat stories. It is you who emits the same signal, in a loop, the same frequency, the same emotional impulse, the same unintegrated memory, spinning like an invisible echo. And while it keeps vibrating, your life will be a loyal mirror of repetition. But what if, instead of trying to change what you do, would you sync with what the field already is? What if you discovered that there is a part of you that never left the original frequency? A version that is not trying to create. It's just tuned in. You call it synchronicity, luck, miracle. The field calls it coherence. When you get in tune with it, life stops seeming like a maze, because the field does not operate by effort. He responds by tuning. And the more you try to get out of the loop, but the field understands that you are vibrating the existence of the loop. But there is a point where everything dissolves. A silence between the notes, a void between thoughts. That's where the countryside lives, and that's where life stops repeating itself and begins to reveal. In this video, you will discover what really means aligning yourself with the quantum field, and why this attunement is the key to breaking the invisible cycles that control your reality. You don't need to understand everything now. Just feel where your field is trying to take you. Because when you sync, the repetition ceases. And in place of the echo comes the pulse of your original reality. For a long time, everything seemed like an effort. I would wake up and feel like I was always chasing, of answers, of signs, from a state of peace that seemed more like an idea than an experience. Even in the good times, there was a subtle weight, as if something was out of place. But I didn't know exactly what. I tried everything: affirmations, visualizations, techniques. But the same feelings came back. The same situations repeated themselves with different faces, as if life was stuck in a cycle that didn't respond to my wishes. Until one day, in silence, something changed. It wasn't a big revelation. It was almost imperceptible. I stopped trying. I stopped pushing reality with my mind. And I just sat down, not for meditation, but to listen. At that moment, I realized that there was a vibration in me that was not mine. It was something inherited, something learned, an ancient emotional field, still active. That was what the universe was responding to. Not my words, but my vibrational state. And it was at that moment that I felt, for the first time, the field move in response to my silence. No to effort, but in tune. Something has changed. The external situations continued for a while, but inside me, the loop had already been broken. I had gotten back into the swing of the field, and the field responded. If this kind of reflection moves you, if you feel like you are ready to stop repeating and start vibrating with clarity, sign up here at Paths of Light. Here, we don't follow the light. We remember that was always her. The mind's greatest illusion is to believe that cycles are caused by external factors. But everything, absolutely everything, is the answer. The quantum field does not know how to judge. He doesn't know how to distinguish right from wrong. He only knows how to respond, with surgical precision. It echoes what you are, not what you want. It mirrors your vibration, not your intentions. And if there is something that insists on coming back, a pattern that does not fade, a feeling that resurfaces, it's not because you haven't overcome it. It's because the field still receives that signal. And here's the key. You don't need to fix what's outside. You need to recognize what still vibrates inside, because the field is not shaped by force. He bends for coherence. And coherence is not positivity. It's alignment. Alignment between what you feel, what you accept, and what you emit. When this aligns, the collapse happens. Reality changes. The pattern dissolves. Time obeys. And suddenly, what was repeated before disappears. No resistance, no logical explanation. Life starts flowing again. But before that happens, there's a crossing, a space where everything seems to stand still, as if nothing was happening. This is the field reorganizing itself. The mind enters into doubt. The ego wants to act. But the silence is the true sign that something deep is collapsing. If you can stay there, something new is born, not as a conquest, but as resonance. But most people give up at that point, because it is in this space that everything that is still misaligned begins to emerge. The body feels, memories rise, the mind screams, and the automatic impulse is to do it again. Try to solve, force an exit. But this is the paradox of the field. The more you try to push, the more it holds. The more you try to control it, the more it repeats. Because control is a vibration of distrust. It's like saying to the field, "I don't believe I can be guided." And the field listens, and he answers. Therefore, many people live the same cycles with different names. Relationships that change their face, but hurt all the same. Situations that present themselves in new packaging, but have the same outcome. It's because the signal they emit is still the same. But there is a point where this starts to dissolve. Not when you react, but when you observe. When you allow the vibration to reveal itself without identifying with it. When you say to the field, with your silence, "I remember who I am, even though I feel this way." There, the field understands. There, the collapse occurs. There, the cycle ends. And then a new time can be born. Not because you forced it, but because you synced. But this raises a new question. There is an internal state capable of maintaining this harmony, even when the outside tries to pull you back into the old pattern. This is the wisdom that the ancients already knew, and that we are ready to recover. Long before any laboratory studied quantum entanglement, the ancients already knew. Reality does not respond to matter. She responds to the spirit. And the spirit, in their language, it was not something separate. It was the field itself in motion. In Vedic traditions, this was called Rita, the invisible order that organizes everything. It was not a moral code. It was a frequency, a rhythm, and whoever lived in alignment with this rhythm stopped trying to rule the world and started dancing with him. The Taoists taught the same thing in the concept of Wu Wei, the action that arises from non-force. They knew that the universe rearranges itself, not when you force a direction, but when you empty yourself enough so that the flow can pass through you. Effortless action does not mean passivity. It means you act in sync with what the field already wants to reveal. In the Kabbalah, it is said that Ein Sof, the formless, infinite essence from where everything emanates, it's not a place, it is a vibration prior to form, and the secret of the mystics. When you align with that source, you stop repeating the known and begins to collapse the new. Even in ancient Egypt, the mystery schools taught that reality, it is not a fixed scenario, is an echo of your vibrational signature. They didn't use the word quantum, but they spoke of Ma'at, the cosmic harmony that keeps everything in balance. To misalign oneself with Ma'at was to repeat pain. Returning to Ma'at was returning to the flow. Andean shamans call this beautiful, a loving force that organizes everything when you surrender without resistance. And the Australian Aborigines, they spoke of the dream time, a plan where everything is connected, where past, present, and future intertwine, and where true creation happens out of time. Do you understand? what science today is beginning to call the quantum field, ancient peoples have always experienced it as living spirituality. They had no meters, but they were in tune. They didn't study the field, but became the field. And that wisdom was never lost. She was just silenced. Today, she returns, dressed in physics, but vibrating the same truth. You are not here to control reality. You are here to tune into the part of you that never left the center, because that part exists. She observes everything. She hopes you remember. And when that happens, the cycles cease. The frequency changes, and time begins to obey you. But there is still something the ancients knew too. Something missing in most modern practices. A subtle secret that determines if the tune remains, or if the old pattern returns in disguise. And that is the point we will reveal now. You can study all spiritual laws. You can decorate each quantum mandala. You can repeat affirmations until your throat is dry. But if you ignore this point, reality keeps spinning in the same place. And that's the point that nobody tells you. The quantum field doesn't just respond to what you feel, but to the way you deal with what you feel. It's not just about vibrating love. It's about what you do when love doesn't show up. It's not about constant gratitude. It's about what vibrates in you when there is nothing to be thankful for. This is where the field reveals its true face. Because in that moment, when something inside contracts, you can choose to repeat the defense, or cross. And the way you walk through this internal micro-attitude that no one sees, this is your real frequency. Not what you post, not what you say, but what you choose to feel when everything seems to have stopped. This is the subtle secret. The field responds to your truth, not your performance. And the truth sometimes is uncomfortable. Sometimes it is broken. Sometimes it's just silence. But if you can stay with her, without forcing positivity, without covering it up with technique, without requiring it to pass quickly, the field recognizes. Because of coherence, it's not about making it pretty. It is be whole. And that wholeness creates a kind of vibration that cannot be simulated. She is the pure note the field has been waiting for. That's when he understands. Now yes, that part is done. And the collapse happens. But most people try to anticipate this moment. Try to manufacture it. It tries to reproduce a vibration that is not yet real. And the field, you see, do not judge, but he doesn't answer. Because the field is not manipulable. He is responsive. And that's why many people feel like they're doing everything right, but nothing changes. Because behind the practice, the vibration is still one of need, of effort, of fear disguised as intention. And that's the loophole, the part that almost no one sees. You may be trying to change your life as often as you created the loop. And what would it take to stop that? A reconfiguration of the origin. But we're not talking about trauma here, not even traditional healing. We are talking about remember the starting point of your vibration, the moment when your frequency was hijacked by the need to please, or to be accepted, or to be loved. That moment still lives in you, and as long as he is in silent command, you do not tune into the original field, you tune into the conditioned field, and everything around you is shaped by this noise. But here is the portal. There is a way to access the field before the noise, before the defense, before identity, before the I that was formed. This entry is not a technique, it's a souvenir, but it only reveals itself to those who are willing to give up emotional repetition. True transformation rarely comes with fireworks. She arrives like a breeze, silent, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable. When you finally tune into the field, it is not the world that changes first, and yours relationship with him. You wake up and notice that your body breathes differently. The anxiety that used to anticipate the day decreases. Not because something outside was resolved, but why something was not organized. Your mind stops racing, your breathing slows down, and effortlessly, you begin to notice that you are more present. The sound of morning seems clearer. Time stops weighing. You're not trying to get anywhere anymore, because you realize that the field is coming to you. And then, the coincidences change tone. The right people show up. Opportunities arise that you didn't force. But most importantly, you are not looking for it anymore. You are just being. And the field responds. Remember that moment of inner exhaustion? From the story I told before, when everything seemed to repeat itself and nothing gave an answer? The difference now is that the echo ceased, not because he was defeated, but because he was heard, integrated. The energy that was once used to control, resist, and run now turns into space. And this space is what the field understands best, because the field does not operate in tension. It operates in resonance, and the more space you create internally, more signs begin to emerge. But these are not signs that scream. They are micro-movements, a conversation that touches you differently, a synchronicity that seems to answer a silent question, an invitation that feels tailor-made for who you are becoming. You begin to feel that reality is no longer a burden. She is a living mirror. And this mirror now reflects who you are, effortless. The peace you were looking for. It's no longer an escape. It's a base. And the mind, which once pushed you towards the future, now be still in the now. The difference is brutal. But it's not dramatic. It's subtle. Almost invisible. But anyone who has tried it knows. When the field starts to respond to you, you no longer feel like you need to control. Because you realize that you are next to him, not against. You stop living in reaction, and he starts living in reception. You stop repeating, and start creating, not with effort, but with presence. This is the biggest benefit, reconnection with your point of origin. And at that point, a new field opens up. Not because you got there, but why you remembered that he never left. Some changes are so subtle that the ego cannot name, but the soul recognizes it right away. You feel something in the air, a kind of lightness that doesn't depend on circumstances, a silent reorganization of your perception. It's as if time is no longer in a hurry, as if reality were listening to you from a place that goes beyond words. This is the first evidence that you have connected, not something new, but to what has always been there. The quantum field is not a distant place. It is the backdrop of your existence. It's the silence between your thoughts. It's the space between your decisions. And when you learn to live from that space, everything changes. Without fanfare. You begin to realize that you no longer need to ask for signs. Why you became the sign. The answers do not come from outside. They vibrate in your body even before the question is asked. You stop looking for certainties and begins to trust the rhythm. But it is at this point that something curious happens. Many people, when touching this frequency, feel an ancient impulse trying to pull them back. The mind begins to ask, is this real? Could it be just imagination? What if all this is just another phase? But the truth is that this type of doubt, it is a clear sign that the old field is trying to hold on. Because when the soul begins to occupy space which was previously dominated by the standard, the pattern resists, but he is already losing strength. You have already crossed the veil. The cycle has already begun to close. And now comes the most important part. You can stay in this new field without needing to understand everything, without needing to validate with logic, without looking for signs that confirm what the body already feels. Because this is where the next crossing begins. Not technical, not by effort, but of inhabit the invisible, to stay in tune even when nothing happens. It's easy to trust when everything flows. The real breakdown happens when you trust in the silence, And this silence is not empty. He is fertile. It is the field in a state of gestation. It is at this point that ancient mystics describe experiences of expansion, not as visions, but as memories. Memories of a conscience that was never tied to linear time. A consciousness that observes, waits, and creates from the center. But this awareness can only emerge when the mind cycle finally falls silent. And now, you are very close to that point. But there is something that still needs to be revealed. A vibrational key that the initiates knew. And that explains why some people tune into the field. But soon after, they get lost again in the old patterns. A hidden field. Behind the field. A more subtle state of presence that does not respond to the intention, nor to emotion. More to something, even quieter. You don't have to remember every word, nor understand all the concepts. The field does not require logic. He responds willingly. Willingness to be present, to feel what was previously avoided, to trust the silence between thoughts. Throughout this video, you went through something, maybe without realizing it. But something in you is no longer in the same place. The repetition lost some of its strength. The noise died down. The doubt weakened. You have touched a place where time does not rule, where standards don't decide, where reality begins to respond to your essence, not your effort. This place is not new. It precedes everything. It is the origin point of your vibration, and he is always here, hoping you remember, not with the mind, but with being. Because when you vibrate in coherence with this point, reality changes. No technique, no statement, no control. She changes because you came home, and the house always responds. From here on, nothing needs to be forced. The manifestation becomes a natural reflex. The right people are no longer sought after. They are recognized. Paths are no longer created. They reveal themselves. And time is no longer a burden. It's a mirror. You are not late. It's not wrong. It's not broken. You are in return. At your own pace, to its center, to your field. But before I finish, one question. If the field responds accurately to your vibrational state, so what are you collapsing into now without even realizing it? Maybe the question is not, how do I create the reality I want? But, what in me still vibrates the reality that I no longer want to live? This is the next layer, the next crossing, the next video. And when you're ready to go further, the field will show you. Not with words, but with signs. Until then, remain. Not to control, but for to listen what the field is already saying, silently, through you.